Calls to the Scottish SPCA's animal helpline are on the increase. In this series of Animal 999, the charity is taking us behind the scenes to show how Scotland's abused and neglected pets, livestock and wildlife are saved from harm and danger. Coming up, hungry mouths pile the pressure on Lorraine.
This is the most stressed I will ever be in the whole year.
And Inspector Nicky investigates a smashed window that's put a staffy in danger.
If that would have went right through, then obviously he would have cut all these wee paws.
The month of May usually sees the biggest number of birds at the Scottish SPCA's Wildlife Rescue Centre at Fishcross in central Scotland. However, there's been a late spring, and as a result, mating seasons have been knocked out of sync.
Baby swift.
That means Fishcross staff are getting ready for a bumper June and July.
What I'll do is I'll take this woodpecker through. We've got quite a few, just had 4 of these in already, so that'll add to the collection. And I think those are house martins.
House martins,
yep, I can see them. Black and white, that's them.
Senior Wildlife Assistant Lorraine Gow is taking delivery of 4 house martins and a greater spotted woodpecker.
Just a juvenile. He's quite thin. So he's maybe been struggling. A lot of these birds hit windows and they come out the nest and the weakest ones are always left behind and they can't keep up with the rest of the family group. But he doesn't seem to be injured, which is good. We're getting so many birds in just now, which is quite unusual. At this time of year, last year, we were sort of quietening down and then the house martin and swallow season would start. But because it's been such a long winter and it's pushed spring back, we found that the blue tits and coal tits and great tits, all these types of birds that would come out usually in May, are getting brought in now and fledging now in June, which is really unusual. It's usually May. This is the most stressed I will ever be in the whole year is during May and June. And it's like, you know, give me a wide berth, because I'm like, yeah, it pushes you to the limit, but you've got to keep going because you know they all want to be fed. The worst time is in the morning when you walk in.
With the addition of the new arrivals, there are now 70 birds in the nestling room. Lorraine and the rest of the staff are going to have their work cut out to get these birds ready for release. Clydebank, just to the north of Glasgow. There are lots of dogs in the area, so it's a regular haunt of the Scottish SPCA. Today, Senior Inspector Nicky Scott is returning to an address she's been called to before. It's the same complaint. A young staffy is being left for long periods of time and not being walked.
Where is it?
It's SSPCA again.
Who?
SSPCA, I spoke to you before.
Yes, 2 seconds.
Thanks.
To get myself decent.
The last time I came, it was a similar story that the dog wasn't getting exercised, and when I turned up, she was actually on this grass with it on a lead. Lovely, healthy, young staffy. He'd been neutered, didn't see a problem at all. There wasn't a complaint about the house at that point, so I hadn't been in the house. So just this time, hopefully get into the house and see if the dog is being left.
I've actually gave the dog up.
When was this?
I'll prove to you, I'll show you why, right? Come on now, come on, right.
Were you having bother with it again?
Right, that
Right.
for the starters, and then there's this over here. Not to mention...
When did you give it up?
Gave it up at the weekend there.
Right, because the complaint came in at the weekend. But you says you'd been bothered feeding it and it was thin and somebody had smashed your window and...
Somebody has smashed my window, that's the reason, that's another reason I did give him up. Because I keep him in the kitchen at night. So if the window would have went in and he's cut all his wee paws and he would have bled to death.
Was it your kitchen window that...
It's not been right through.
Right.
You know, but I wasn't taking any chances. Not to mention, I'm looking for a job now. If I got a job, I wouldn't have the time to take care of him.
Right.
So
Are you still going to see where he is and stuff?
Yeah, I know fine well where he is. I'm still visiting him and all that.
While Inspector Nicky takes a note of where the dog is living now, his former owner gets all nostalgic.
Bronson is what you would describe as a lovable rogue. He's playful, he's very hyper. If he sees a football, he's like a typical man. I can't watch tennis or football in here because he goes up to the TV and he starts trying to get the ball. Starts poking his nose into the telly. And then if he thinks the ball's actually going out with the telly, he'll go and start chasing it and bang his head off the window. One day, I opened my window, there was a couple of guys playing football, he ran out and he burst the wee boy's ball. I had to take them all to JD and buy them all a new one. I've had to give him up basically because I've had a bit of trouble in the area. I wouldn't have any harm done to him while he's in my house. The person he's with now has got a lovely front and back garden. They've got a kid, he's brilliant with kids. They've got the money to take care of him. I'm between jobs now, as everybody says. So I've not really got the money. I did feed him and all that, I'm not saying that, it's just they would be able to buy him treats.
Nikki will have to visit the address Melissa's given her to make sure Bronson's being looked after. But these cases often don't work out well. The nestling room in the Wildlife Rescue Centre at Fishcross is full. It's May, and the late spring has played havoc with the mating season, so everything's about a month behind. There are 70 fledglings in here, ranging from dunnocks to starlings, blackbirds to various finches. It's a record total, which means unparalleled noise levels. The birds have to be fed every hour from morning until about 9 o'clock at night.
When they come out the nest, what they do is they keep peeping all the time, and that's to tell mum where they are. And then if mum flies further away, they'll try and follow. And at that age, even though they'd be out the nest, their feathers are not developed enough for them to fly, so that's why they jump everywhere, which makes it really difficult when you're trying to feed them. It's like trying to control 2-year-old kids. 70 children. These two are the naughtiest ones in here.
These chaffinches and sparrows are greedy little customers. They've been snacking all day, so they should be full.
Around about this time of day, it's time for an afternoon snooze for the wee guys, and it gives me a chance to get something to eat, and then I can have a rest for a few minutes, and then it all starts again until bedtime.
Starlings are the noisiest residents in the nestling room. And the biggest gluttons.
The starlings can eat quite a lot. They're real gutses, you know, they can clear this whole bowl. Once they've had enough to eat, they start moving back, and then they'll be at the back of the cage, and that's when you know it's about time to finish.
The woodpecker that arrived a few days ago will need to be fattened up before being sent to an expert who will give it the one-to-one attention it needs.
I think if we can get him built up and get him a bit stronger. He's quite strong already, but he's very thin, you know, he should be so much fatter than that. Just give him a wee drink. Birds get really dehydrated, especially if they're in transit or they're ill or something's happened to them. So the first thing I usually do when they come in is give them fluids. And after that, it's some food. But fluids is the most important thing to start off with. It's important as well for people in the gardens, you know, when they're feeding birds in the garden, to not forget about giving them water. A lot of birds like to bathe and drink, and even during the winter, the water freezes up, they can't find any place to drink. So it's so important that people put a wee dish of water out and just to give the garden birds some fluids.
This woodpecker was lucky, and it was released a few weeks later when it had regained its strength. The starlings will need another few weeks of TLC before they'll be good to go. Still to come, has Bronson hit the jackpot? And the starlings get fed up of life in the aviary.
You can see by their behaviour that they're absolutely ready to go.
Cats are known for being persistent prowlers. They roam far and wide and set up temporary dens in all sorts of places before going home to their owners. But sometimes they don't return if they think they might be better off in new lodgings. Scottish SPCA Animal Rescue Officer Joanna Boyle suspects that's what's happened in her latest call-out.
First started about 3 nights ago. It was at the back door meowing. It came back the next again day, and my daughter was obviously out clapping it, and it was quite timid about her as well, and it just kept on coming back again and again, and it's been coming in and it's been meowing round about, and I'm feared for it, I really am, because it's a wee shame.
And you were worried he had a kind of oil on him? Was it just this kind of dirty?
It's right in between his claws and that as well. It was worse than that last night, but it's really, really oily. I've got it oil in my hands and that. And that's that vandal grease as well, just there on its wee. And it's covered. It was worse than that last night, to be honest.
Yep.
And I was quite worried about it, as I said, because I've seen it kind of about for the last 3-4 days.
There doesn't seem to be much wrong with the cat. It's quite thin, but it's a young moggy, and that's not really concerning Joanna.
The fact that he's got his wee collar on and things, and he doesn't look... I mean, it's a slim cat, but it does look more the age he is, whether he looks about 6 months to a year, that they are just this kind of build.
The first couple of days we've not been feeding it.
Yeah.
And it's just coming back and back and back, so I just wanted to obviously make sure.
I know.
Because I was kind of worried.
Yeah. To be honest with you, I would put him outside and do your best to kind of be ignoring him to try and get him to go back to wherever he's coming from.
She's fell in love with him, do you know what I mean? And it's like, oh well, what do I do? I'm not sure what to do.
He is a cutie, isn't he? But no, that's definitely what I would do. We've got a wee note of him on our system, so if anybody did phone up and say, I've lost a black and white cat in this area, we'll know that he's been hanging about here. She's desperate to get off. We'll get her off and she'll probably head back home, I would think. The oil that she was worried about, I mean, it just seems like marks that it's picked up when it's been out and about on this adventure it's been on overnight. Its weight's fine for the age it is just a lean young cat, and her daughter had been feeding it and playing with it, so it's probably just coming back for a wee visit here now that it knows it's getting some attention, and I would imagine it'll go back to wherever else it's getting fed as well. It's maybe moved itself in somewhere else, but when it does have that collar on and it is so healthy, I would say it does have an owner nearby anyway.
This type of call-out is a common one for the society. The moral of the story is not to take in cats that come calling at your door. Senior Wildlife Assistant Lorraine Gow's starlings have been doing well since they came into Fishcross 8 weeks ago. They've been transferred into outside aviaries, and it's now time for them to be released. But Lorraine and Wildlife Assistant Eve Smaller have to catch them first.
These are the very same starlings that we saw in the nestling room. They've now started self-feeding, they've built up their flight muscles, they're weathered as well. All we need to do is release them, and you can see by their behaviour that they're absolutely ready to go. So you've got to be quite handy with the net here. A lot of people usually say, how can these birds that we're hand feeding ever be wild? Well, I think this is a good example when you're trying to catch them in the aviary, that after feeding on their own and being up here for a week or two, they get very wild, and it's always good when you've got a big group of them to release them together, and they have absolutely no problem with them integrating back into the colonies outside. We have them all. Yes.
We'll be back shortly to see Lorraine and Eve release the starlings back into the wild.
It's mission accomplished.
Something's made a big impression on this window. You can see the outline of the eye, beak, wing and body of a bird. It's hurt itself and has been contained under a cardboard box to await the arrival of the Scottish SPCA.
Right, let's have a look to see what the damage is.
Animal Rescue Officer Connie O'Neill's seen this type of injury before.
That's a wood pigeon. It's not an old wood pigeon. It's not a full adult. It's just learning to fly actually at the moment.
I thought it was an older bird.
No. It'll get more white on it.
Right.
You can see the band of white on the wing.
Is the bird badly hurt, is it? No.
Let me just check in here, see what's going on. I don't know if that's a bit of canker starting in its throat there. That's treatable with meds. Looks a bit yellowy. And that usually builds up, and then they can't eat, they can't breathe. There might be some breathing problems there already. Its mouth breathing quite a bit. It's not got any food in its crop, but it's having problems breathing. I don't know if that's already to do with the canker because it builds up and it can block their airways as well, so it might be having a bit of problems.
The pigeon was probably trying to escape from a crow or a bird of prey and couldn't see the glass it flew into. But its breathing problems are more worrying for Connie.
Has it got a sort of disease? Is that a...
Yeah, the canker in its throat it's curable with medication. It's going to go. It's not going to cope.
I see.
Its head's going over. The shock's been too much. I think it's dying.
This wood pigeon isn't going to make it, and Connie will have to put it to sleep. But before she does, nature takes over.
At first when it hit the window, it's hit it with force because you can see the whole of the outline of the bird. You can even see its eye and everything on the window. But I think it's a combination of injury, internal injury and shock that's just done it in the end, and it's just quietly passed away. If a bird flies into your window, you should look at it and see if it's looking awkwardly, the head looks a bit bent over, or just give it a bit of time and see if it'll fly away on its own accord. If it doesn't, after an hour or so, then definitely give us a call and we'll come and get it and see what we can do for it. This little pigeon just passed away as I was holding it. It's just been too much for it.
In Clydebank, Senior Inspector Nicky Scott is on the trail of Bronson. A 1-year-old Staffordshire Bull Terrier she's been told has been rehomed by his original owner. These stories often turn out to be lies, and the dog ends up in an even worse situation than it was before. But on this occasion, it seems there's a happy ending.
Aye, I'm looking to speak to Chantel. It's just to see if you've got Bronson.
I do, yes.
That's all. Just wanted to make sure, because we'd had a couple of complaints about where he was before.
Right. He was actually in a house and the woman wasn't...
No, I know. I've had dealings with the...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you like to come in?
Bronson is safe, just like Melissa said. Nicky needs to make sure he's fit and healthy, and then this case will be closed.
Oh, he's great. He's dead friendly, dead loving. He's great with my wee boy. He's always licking you and jumping a bit mad. But he's great. So he is.
I'm just really pleased to see that he's here and happy, and you're definitely going to be keeping him now.
Definitely going to be keeping him, yep.
Right, that's great.
No, got a bit of badness in him, not I mean.
No, he's lovely.
Bronson!
He looks really settled. He looks as though he's been here all his life.
Oh dear.
That was good. You're a clever boy. Oh well, Bronson, you look as though you've landed on your feet, pal.
Bronson's been lucky. He's found a loving home where he'll get all the attention he needs. But his story shows you shouldn't take on the responsibility of any animal if you can't afford the time or the money to look after it. Back at Fishcross, and Lorraine Gow is about to set her starlings free.
It's good to release them on site, obviously, and there's no transportation that they have to endure. They really need to get released straight away. So we're so lucky here at Fishcross because we've got really nice habitat, this woodland here. It's really nice coverage, it's close by as well, so if anything went wrong, we're here to help.
After 2 months of being looked after by Lorraine, the starlings will have to quickly learn to fend for themselves.
This is the end result, this is what we've all been working towards. Just releasing them, and now they're on their own, and I just wish them a long life. Lots of babies in the future. It's as quick as that. all that work. And hopefully they'll stay together up here now. And then we've already released quite a few starlings, so you can hear them. Fantastic. Just a few more hundred to go.